Bloomberg Audio Studios. Podcasts, radio, news. You're listening to the Bloomberg Intelligence Podcast. Catch us live weekdays at 10 a.m. Eastern on Apple CarPlay and Android Auto with the Bloomberg Business app. Listen on demand wherever you get your podcasts or watch us live on YouTube.
Okay, so we have some big news. EchoStar, it's agreed to sell spectrum licenses to AT&T for about $23 billion. I'm looking at EchoStar shares right now. They're up 77%. So we wanted to talk about this, right? So our producers are scrambling. It's a mad dash. Who are we going to get? We're going to pull in someone who's hanging in Nantucket. That's right. It's John Butler, Bloomberg Intelligence Senior Telecom Analyst. John, we really appreciate you taking the time for us.
No problem. Good morning, guys. How are you?
Good morning. Yes, we pull in the big guns. So yes. Explain to us right off the bat, what does this deal mean?
So obviously, given the price action, it is huge for EchoStar. And I think at issue for them is they've been trying to build their own 5G network to compete with the big guys, and they have the spectrum to do it, but they didn't have the capital to do it. They really have an outsized debt load that they've really been struggling to service. And the FCC intervened here, and they've been pressuring the head of EchoStar, Charlie Ergen, to either use the spectrum and start to fill those airwaves or to sell it. And so I think this is maybe the first of maybe even more moves to sell more spectrum on the part of the company. But given the price tag, it alleviates that capital crunch. And so any risk of default here, I think, is minimized now in the wake of this deal. And so investors are breathing a big sigh of relief.
Talk to me a little bit, John, about this price, $23 billion, $9 billion more than EchoStar paid for the spectrum, $5 billion more than the appraised value. Is AT&T getting value out of this $23 billion deal, or are they grossly overpaying?
So I'll say spectrum is like houses on Nantucket. The price just continues to go up over the years, particularly with the advent of AI now and the need for more capacity to carry that added traffic. It's really not a concern on my part as to whether or not AT&T is going to get a good return on this investment. And again, all kidding aside, I go back to that analogy that really spectrum does increase. It tends to increase in value over time. It's a very illiquid market, so it's hard to really get a good feel for fair value of different frequencies. But I have no doubt that at the end of the day, even expensive is going to prove cheap here for them.
Hey, John, can you dig a little bit into how this is going to expand AT&T's network?
So if you look at the spectrum holdings of Verizon, T-Mobile, and AT&T, and spectrum, I'll just take a step back for listeners that don't know. When you're making a call or transmitting data over the air, you're doing it using spectrum. And the more you have, think of it like the width of a pipe. The more you have, the fatter the pipe, the faster the download speeds. And so AT&T intends to put this spectrum to use almost immediately to really enhance the download speeds of the network. And so network quality gets better, word gets around, people begin to say AT&T has a better network. So from a branding standpoint, there's a real benefit here. And then longer term, again, as AI continues to scale up and inferencing those queries that we make and the answers we get back, a lot of that's going to be done at the edge of the network where you need that big fat pipe to support that traffic. So I think in their minds, those are the two things they're after: improving the network quality and the brand image, and having the pipes to move the traffic that's coming down the road here.
And John, yesterday on a call with investors, AT&T's CEO Stankey said that, regulators shouldn't be concerned that this transaction was going to put too much wireless spectrum, I guess, in the hands of one of the largest telecom carriers. That's what he told investors. But do you think regulators are going to balk at this?
No, I think regulators have been behind prompting the sale, if that's the right way to put it. So again, the FCC was really on EchoStar to sell some of that spectrum. They're educated and well-educated in wireless as regulators to know that it was probably going to be one of the big guys that would step up and buy it. If I look at AT&T spectrum holdings, they had a competitive disadvantage or less holdings in the band or the frequencies that they purchased from EchoStar here. So I don't think there's any sort of regulatory argument against the deal here, but I would defer to our legislative analysts in Washington to really make the call there, but I'm not concerned.
Stay with us for more Bloomberg Intelligence coming up after this.
You're listening to the Bloomberg Intelligence Podcast. Catch us live weekdays at 10 a.m. Eastern on Apple CarPlay and Android Auto with the Bloomberg Business app. Listen on demand wherever you get your podcasts or watch us live on YouTube.
So a lot of headlines in the news. One of them that caught my eye, this was Eli Lilly. Okay, so their weight loss pill, it's moving a little bit closer, one step closer to this potential approval. This came after results from its latest trial. So what we want to do is get more details from that. Let's bring in Sam Fazeli. He is Bloomberg Intelligence Director of Research for Global Industries and Senior Pharmaceuticals. Joining us from London. Sam, welcome back to the show. So this is the second trial of the pill, I believe. So how is it different this time around?
It is, Lisa, and thank you for having me back. And I'm sorry that Paul isn't here for me to give him grief, because he always tells me off for taking days off.
He always busts your chops.
Next time. So look, this is a large trial in diabetic patients, but obese diabetic patients. So they're looking at the impact in that population. That population tends to have less of a weight loss for a variety of reasons, but it's come out exactly where we thought it would come out. Actually, maybe a little bit better than people's lowered expectations after that first trial readout a couple of weeks ago, if you remember, when the stock got hit severely, Lilly's stock. And so we're seeing about 10% weight loss and still the same high levels of discontinuations. This is a long trial, so you even find a whole bunch of people on placebo discontinue because they get bored, they want to go and get weight loss from another drug. So it's actually pretty decent data, and I think you can see that Novo has sold off on the back of this because it's a small molecule pill. It's a pill you can take, relatively easily manufactured, and you can take without too much complications in terms of don't eat, do eat, take it in the morning, take it in the evening, that sort of stuff.
And that's the key, Sam, and I'm wondering how much of a game changer this is, because it's not an injection, right? It's a pill. You're looking at an industry that by 2030 is projected to be $95 billion. So if this goes Eli Lilly's way, is it a game changer for the company?
Yeah, I mean, it has gone their way. This is, unless something shows up in the enormous number of files that they filed to the FDA in terms of side effects or something, this is a drug that's likely to get approved. The question is, how do you use it? You've got the injectables once a week, not a big ask, very fine needle. People even tell me they don't even notice the needle going in and out, but still, you don't see the needle. Where does it sit? 10% weight loss versus 20-odd% weight loss. So what is the right way forward here? Some people are needle phobic. It's going to be helpful for those. Some people can't get access to the drug because it's hard to manufacture the other ones that are injectables, sterile manufacturing. So there's lots of room for this. And of course, there's this other thing that I think a lot of people keep thinking about is you've got your big weight loss with your injectables 6 months in, 9 months in, 12 months in, switch to this and help you maintain. You might not even need the higher doses, which are causing some side effects. Maybe you can get away with a lower dose and maintain that weight loss. They would have to do a trial to prove that, though.
So, Sam, as you're talking, a question kind of popped into my head. You're talking about all the different advantages to it. What about, has there been any talk about price? Like, how much could this pill cost compared to an injection?
I mean, it would be an error for these companies to start competing with themselves on price with their products. If you find that actually you can go with the lower dose of this, your margins are a bit better, definitely, because there's no device involved, but I don't know what the small molecule manufacturing, because not all small molecules are easy to make, right? It may be a small discount, perhaps, I don't know, but I doubt that this will come out at a level that's significantly lower. On the other hand, it does have lower weight loss, so maybe there is an opportunity to kind of price it pari passu, if that's the right phrase, in line with its weight loss that you're getting.
Mm-hmm. I want to branch out and talk just biotech on a bigger scale for a moment, because M&A has been pretty active, right, in the sector. We had Merck buying Verona Pharma. I think it was for their respiratory treatment recently. What's the outlook for M&A there? And I know one of the hurdles for biotech, and it's sort of an ongoing hurdle, is changes to regulatory framework. So talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, those changes, if you're talking about perhaps the from an FTC perspective, those have not hindered M&A deals. When we counted a whole bunch of deals in the first half of this year, and it looked like a pretty strong year for deals, and that's not even including the Verona one. The thing here is a lot of executives in the biotech world are still looking at their share price charts, thinking back to those beautiful days of 2 or 3 years ago where the share prices were 70-80% higher,
right,
and thinking, is it the right thing for them to do to sell? Clearly, some have got to the point of accepting that, and some have done it from a position of strength. Verona was rocketing up before they got taken out at over $100 a share. So pharma is definitely interested. Maybe if the interest rate environment, going back to what we were just hearing earlier, does go in favor of cost of capital coming down, maybe you'll start seeing some more deals. And of course, that would also help biotech valuations potentially in general. So maybe there would be an interesting time to look out to in the next 6 to 12 months.
All right, Sam. In the last minute or two you have here, another article caught my eye. President Trump, Health and Human Services Secretary Robert Kennedy Jr., they're allegedly planning to ban the COVID vaccine within months. Did this surprise you at all?
Well, yes, no. I mean, both. The thing is, it's rumor. And I think
Correct.
the HHS has said, look, there's nothing that we can tell you today that would back this. I think that would be a mistake. Mm-hmm. And choice is what Americans have always valued in the freedom that the U.S. has. Let's just leave the choice there. Give people all the information. Do the scientific work that the HHS wants to do, and just leave it open and give it to the discussion between physicians and patients and subjects and people. I think that's the right way, whether that will happen or not. But if it does happen, we've got a bad time for BioNTech and Moderna, because that's their only source of revenue.
Stay with us for more Bloomberg Intelligence coming up after this.
You're listening to the Bloomberg Intelligence Podcast. Catch us live weekdays at 10 a.m. Eastern on Apple CarPlay and Android Auto with the Bloomberg Business app. Listen on demand wherever you get your podcasts, or watch us live on YouTube.
What's also a piece of America are eyewear, right? You go out and it's like you're styling. You're wearing your fancy sunglasses. It's a nice day out. You know, you have to look good when you're going out. So this is taking us to the competitive eyewear space. Sources are saying that the maker of Ray-Ban sunglasses, I have my own pair, EssilorLuxottica, they're considering increasing their stake in Nikon. Now, the company has really been pushing ahead with the smart glasses initiative. So we want to find out more about it, right? So let's go to Diana Gomes. She is Bloomberg Intelligence Senior Equity Research Analyst. Diana, thanks for joining us. So how much they want to boost their stake in Nikon, and what's the current holding at?
Hi, yes, thank you for having me. So at the moment, it's about a 9% stake, and the reports we are getting is that there is a potential interest to increase that to about 20%, which would be in the order, looking at current market cap, maybe $300 million or so, which, given EssilorLuxottica's cash position, would not be quite material, but still quite a sizable stake in Nikon from a few years of quite a long experience as in their joint venture. Connect
the dots for us, though, because what does Nikon have that Luxottica wants?
Besides the brand name that is quite well known to even the consumer side outside the professional sector, there is the technology and the know-how that can be utilized and leveraged by both companies. So we are talking about the distribution of Essilor combined with know-how and strong brand name of a company like Nikon, and they have been partnering in different areas. One of them, which is quite an emerging one, is the myopia control, which are these lenses that are meant to slow the progression of myopia in children, which is quite important given that forecasts are that by 2050, about half of the world population could be suffering from myopia. So it's quite an interesting area as an example of those where they are collaborating, particularly in China, where they are selling already some of these myopia control lenses, with the FDA approval for the EssilorLuxottica Celeste still being in the pipeline as well.
And a quick 30 seconds, Diana, who are some of Nikon's competitors in this space, and who does it supply?
So they would be competing with other lenses and also even photographic kind of equipment. And the space is quite diverse at the moment because even with EssilorLuxottica, this partnership just potential extended partnership just shows how the company is going more into the medical technology and medical devices field in terms of trying to also find medical issues just looking at the eye. So that's a new area where companies within the ophthalmological and visual space are looking at, and lenses companies that are potentially with the consumer more known for the photo cameras also play a role with. So it's all quite well integrated and in the world of smart glasses.
Stay with us for more Bloomberg Intelligence coming up after this.
You're listening to the Bloomberg Intelligence Podcast. Catch us live weekdays at 10 a.m. Eastern on Apple CarPlay and Android Auto with the Bloomberg Business app. Listen on demand wherever you get your podcasts or watch us live on YouTube.
All right, we want to move on to this story. We heard it yesterday, Orsted, right? The management now, they're trying to reassure their investors. This is after the Trump administration, while they blocked construction of its almost finished Rhode Island wind farm. So we want to dig more into this story. Let's bring in Patricio Alvarez, Bloomberg Intelligence equity research analyst, power and gas utilities. Who better to talk to than this? So what does this mean for Orsted's planned share sale? That's what I wanted to start right there.
Absolutely. So let's begin where Orsted's management went ahead with a plan for an equity increase that's quite substantial. So that's 60 billion kroner that they announced on August 11th. That was nearly 46% of their market cap back then. So it is a significant size of an equity increase, and that was mainly to cover the construction of Revolution Wind. And that was because the company was not able to sell a stake in that project. That's really their key funding strategy is to sell stake sales in the projects that they're building. They were not able to do so, so they needed to go for this massive equity increase. Now, the stop work order that you just mentioned, I think most of the market did not see that coming, given that the project was already 80% of the way. 45 out of 65 wind blades were already on the ground. So this is unprecedented. I think the Empire Wind stop work order and then restart is different in the way that the project was not as far in advance as this one. So it will dampen investor confidence ahead of the planned equity increase. But we do note that the backing of the Danish government, which has committed a 50.1% pro rata share of that equity increase, will give some reassurance and will probably help secure those funds.
I know the stock took a big hit, fell to a record low, but it bounced back again. I believe it started trading again, right, overseas and rallied. And why is that? Was it oversold? Did investors think it was oversold, do you think?
I think there was a bit mix of both. So the stop work order came in Friday after market, and I think markets didn't have time to digest the implications to the equity increase after we had a bank holiday in the UK. So markets open up this morning, and that was mainly because of these reassurance of Orsted. So the company came out with a statement saying that the Danish government has actually reiterated or reaffirmed their intent to participate at least in 50.1% of that equity increase, with the remaining set to be underwritten. So the company tried to instill some confidence by reiterating the plan. And as we know, we think that the backing of the Danish government is a big endorsement for this equity increase. So we do think it will go ahead, but perhaps we will have to wait into early September where there'll be an AGM and see where the share price is trading at then.
Hey, Patricio, can you walk us through the president's arguments against offshore wind, and then what supporters are saying? The pros and the cons against it.
Sure. So, the administration has flagged that there are several issues with wind development in general. Firstly, that it could impact the environment for whales, so that it could actually hurt whales, that birds could fly into the wind blades, and then on the other side, or onshore, there's also community resistance. There's been a few protests actually saying that that the offshore wind doesn't look good on the horizon. So these are several things, but again. Orsted actually had all the permits for this farm to go ahead, and several studies actually countering the impact of this offshore wind farms versus their benefit. Offshore wind has been a niche technology in the U.S. It's still a nascent industry. It's a bit more advanced in Europe, but in the U.S. we still have only a handful of megawatts. But still, it's an important part of the energy mix. It will help decarbonize the economy. It will help add more electrons into the grid and avoid using more expensive gas.
And in the time we have left, Patricio, can you talk to us a little bit about Orsted's competition, their rivals in this space, and what this possible setback for them might mean for the competition? Is this, actually an advantage? Does it give them an advantage in some way?
So perhaps outside of the U.S., I would say there will be, there's possibly some silver linings for other competitors. We cover other companies like RWE, which is heavily invested in European offshore wind. So the company is still moving ahead with plans in Germany that look, clear, that there's more regulatory certainty here in Europe. But conditions are still, I would say, not straightforward for offshore wind development in Europe. A few auctions here have been unsuccessful. We've only tendered a handful of megawatts in the past 2 or 3 years. So that said, there is a silver lining for them, but I wouldn't say that the outlook changes materially.
This is the Bloomberg Intelligence Podcast, available on Apple, Spotify, and anywhere else you get your podcasts. Listen live each weekday, 10 a.m. to noon Eastern on Bloomberg.com, the iHeartRadio app, TuneIn, and the Bloomberg Business app. You can also watch us live every weekday on YouTube and always on the Bloomberg Terminal.